you come with two teachers? You were not informed too? Continue. No problem. God will see us. There is God. There is God in everything we are doing. Those bloods that are sharing in Pronu will answer. What of two teachers? What of two teachers that can tell us that they conducted that exam? Do you come with any? Principal? No, too. Only you waka come. Okay. Now the first lady is calling you. Come, I want to help you. Come to find your child, your missing child. Will you keep quiet? No. Child. There is God. Oh. There is God. Oh. The bloods we are sharing, there is God. Oh. There is God. Oh. There is God. Oh. There is God. Oh. There is God. Oh.
Ìjẹ̀bú, wọ́n rí ẹni Bìní, wọ́n rí ẹni Ìbàdàn. wẹ́rẹ́wẹ́rẹ́ tòmí rìn yìí kò máa tẹ́ mi lọ́rùn o. Ìrìn wẹ́rẹ́wẹ́rẹ́ tòmí rìn yìí kò máa tẹ́ mi lọ́rùn. Bó bá ń bọ́kọ sọ̀rọ̀ awú bí búrẹ́dì omi. Bó ń bọ́kọ sọ̀rọ̀ awú bí búrẹ́dì omi. A máa mọ́jú táyé bí ojú egbére. Irú eléyìí kò máa tọ́ sí ìyàwó ilé.
And then, pardon me, pardon me. And there it is right there. There it is right there. Here I am right here. And there you are, wherever it is that you are. The way for you. The way for you, Komayemi Omidon. So there it is, the Orlando, of course, the mighty man from Ondo State. That purports to be somewhat Yoruba, that song, it purports to be somewhat Yoruba, but not Yoruba with the inflection. Even I need subtitles to understand what he's saying, but it's a variant of Yoruba, but you know that Ondo space, it leans more towards the south, and there are elements of intermeshing between both the culture and language of that particular cusp. So that peculiar sort of Yoruba that they have over there is for the initiated. It's not for everybody. Certainly not for me. I can identify words, but not the full diet of. But still, purpose to be Yoruba. You know what they call an older person in Ondo? They call them again, which is not a word really that I identify to be a Yoruba word, but nevertheless it is. But there it is. So that it is. There it is right there. Orlando, of course, no other. The raspiness of the voice, which my voice is getting towards now with all of this clogging that I have in my chest, the raspiness of his voice makes it inimitable. There is no mistaking that always is Orlando was. So that was Orlando right there, bringing the session to a start. So good day to you. Good to be in your company. And how are you? Good day to you. Good to be in your company. And how are you? So we started off with that. Good day to you. And then we invite you to take some actions. Click on the like button just as soon as you invite me hear you. Just as soon as you hear me invite you to do so. So click on the like button. And then if you're not already subscribed, please correct that as well. Like and subscribe. Very, very important, of course. I cannot overlabor the importance of it, but I don't think the importance of it is lost on anybody. So when people invite you to like and subscribe, you all know why they are asking and what it means. So for all of those reasons, I make that invitation as well. Like and subscribe. So like and subscribe. And then if you want to come and join me on the screen, the hyperlink that says StreamYard, that's your ticket to ride. So let me send it again. Make sure it's immediate to hand in the comment section. So this now, this item that flashes up now in the comment section, that's your invitation to come and join me on the screen. So if you feel inclined to have a conversation, click on that hyperlink, brings you into a studio space. Soon as I finish delivering the body of the talking points, I'll let you onto the screen, then I'll invite your thoughts. Nothing complex, nothing complicated. Any and every single person that you've seen on this platform, that's exactly what they have done. So there's no special booking to book anyone really. That doesn't really happen, really. It's essentially really sending that hyperlink out and then leaving it in the lap of the gods. So hopefully we'll have a riveting conversation as always, as has become the custom now on this platform. So yet another riveting session with One Man Waits to More, as now has become your expectation. So there it is. Like, share, and subscribe. Click on the hyperlink that says StreamYard to come and join me on the screen. Super chat towards the platform. So all those things, those are the call to actions. I call it on every single time. So all of you should be familiar with it by now. Like, share, subscribe, super chat towards the stream. I was going to start it here, but let me start it actually. Somewhere else. Let me start it here instead. Because there is a clip that precedes this headline that you're seeing on the screen here. So the headline first, NNPC says video claiming Dangote refinery's petrol lasts longer is misleading. Vows to take legal action. So there it is right there. So it's a reputational thing, of course, trying to defend their product, but what has got the NNPC so bent out of shape? NNPC says video claiming Dangote refinery's petrol lasts longer is misleading, vows to take legal action. So we necessarily then have to first examine what that video is and what it has to offer and what it is alleging. So the story starts from here.
Is it true that Dangote's fuel lasts longer than others? Let's find out. I bought 2 brand new I Better Pass My Neighbor generators straight out of the box just for this experiment, so no stories. MRS petrol stations have a partnership with Dangote Refinery, meaning you can buy locally refined fuel from them. I went to their station at Alakpere, Lagos, and I got 1 liter for 925 naira. For the comparison, I also bought fuel from NNPC in Ojodubega, Lagos, and it cost 945 naira per liter. That's 20 naira more than the MRS fuel. Now, looking at both fuels, the Dangote fuel looks a little bit darker. For these small generators, you have to mix the fuel with engine oil before use, so I did exactly that for both of them. I filled both generators with the same quantity of fuel, turned them on, and set a timer. And after 17 minutes 51 seconds, the generator running on NNPC fuel died first. Meanwhile, the generator using MRS fuel kept running for 30 minutes. That's a 13-minute difference, a big deal, especially when it's cheaper. So yeah, it looks like the Dangote refined fuel actually lasts longer than the fuel you get from at least NNPC. And again, it is cheaper. Oh God, it is called fuel, not fuel. Fuel. Now what for you?
So there it is, fuel, not fuel. I don't quite know. Fuel, fuel, so long as the messages are transmitted. So there's that clip then that got the NNPC all bent out of shape, and this is how they respond. NNPC says video claiming Dangote refinery's petrol lasts longer, misleading, vows to take legal action. Pardon me. Pardon me. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC Limited, has dismissed claims made by a Nigerian man in a viral video that the premium motor spirit PMS sourced from Dangote refinery and sold by MRS oil lasts 30 minutes longer than that sold at NNPC fuel stations. I don't know, fuel stations. What's this thing covering my, oh God, here it is. All right, I'm not quite sure what this thing is. Let me see if I can. All right, we just have to get past that. So again, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC Limited, has dismissed claims made by a Nigerian man in a viral video that the premium motor spirit PMS sourced from Dangote refinery and sold by MRS oil lasts 13 minutes longer than that sold at NNPC fuel stations. In a statement released on Saturday, February the 15th, the NNPC's Chief Corporate Communications Officer, Olufemi Shoneye, said the assertion is misleading, false, and baseless. Said the assertion is misleading, false, baseless, and entirely unfounded, and that the NNPC will take legal action against anyone who makes such claims again. So there's a lot to say about that. So the first thing, actually, let's read it to the end first, and then we'll see what we're making of it. He explained that the claim originates from unverified and amateur research, which lacks credibility, accuracy, and professional oversight. A video making the rounds on social media shows a Nigerian man using two small Tiger generator, popularly known as I Better Pass My Neighbor generator in Nigeria, to compare the running time of petrol is sourced from MRS and NNPC fuel stations. In the video, the man claimed Dangote refined petrol sold by MRS oil lasts longer than the PMS available at NNPC stations, and in addition, more affordable. So he goes on to give us then a recitation of what that guy said in the video that we just saw. So I'm skipping through that because we just heard that from the video itself. Dismissing the man's claim, Shoneye in the statement released emphasized that NNPC carefully formulates its petrol with one of the best compositions to ensure optimal efficiency, durability, and environmental sustainability for consumers. Furthermore, it is important to emphasize that a significant percentage of the premium motor spirits PMS sold at NNPC retail stations in Lagos, where this deceptive video was created, is sourced from Dangote Refinery, a strategic partner in promoting local production and energy security. So there's a lot to actually unpick from that, actually. So first, let's start from the beginning. There's every possibility that that video is an op-ed. It's a commissioned thing by the Dangote space in order, because Dangote has been trying hard to promote that he sells a superior product to the Nigerian space. So he's been trying hard to bring forth that narrative that his product is superior, but certainly we established that the product is cheaper. But ultimately, there's every possibility that that was a commissioned piece by NNPC to just put that, and they would have pumped money behind it to make it viral as well. Because I saw that video actually a few days ago, but now for NNPC to be responding to it, that is to tell you then that they also feel there is an up-edge. So there is that one first. But the second part, the most important part actually is this paragraph right here. So the most important, listen very carefully to this paragraph. Furthermore, it is important to emphasize that a significant, listen very carefully. Furthermore, it is important to emphasize that a significant percentage of premium motor spirit PMS sold at NNPC retail stations in Lagos, where this deceptive video was created, is sourced from the Dangote refinery, a strategic partner in promoting local production and energy security. So there it is right there. It is actually this line here that is the biggest takeaway from this piece. So it's this line here. So firstly, there's a bit of a sleight of hand at play there. So NNPC then tells us that they fixed up all of these refineries, and they are working now. Warri, Port Harcourt, etc. They are always taking cameras in there and flaring up our furnaces to tell us that this thing is working. So if their refineries are working, then how come they are sourcing petroleum being sold at NNPC petrol stations from Dangote refinery? So that's the first question, and this is not publicly known until it's been forced out now by that guy's video. So that's the first and most important thing. So why are they sourcing it? And if they are sourcing it from Dangote refinery, like for like, so if they are sourcing it from Dangote refinery, then that makes them no more than an oil marketer, no different from that MRS chain. So if they are sourcing it from Dangote refinery, how come then their retail price is 20 naira higher than a rival petrol station chain? Do you get where I'm going with that? If they are sourcing it from Dangote refinery, how come? Because there are two odoros in play here. The first odoro is for NNPC to be sourcing petrol from Dangote and then try to palm it off as NNPC petrol at their own chain of petrol stations. So that's the first odoro. But the second odoro, because NNPC really is a public service enterprise, although it's not being turned into a PLC, but really NNPC's petrol should be the cheapest in the country. And if they are sourcing like for like from Dangote as other retailers, then how come their price markup is higher than other retailers? So there's a lot in there. Furthermore, it is important to emphasize that a significant percentage of petroleum motor spirit PMS sold at NNPC retail stations in Lagos, where this deceptive video was created, is sourced from Dangote refinery, a strategic partner in promoting local production and energy security. Dangote refinery adheres to strict industrial standards, guaranteeing the quality of petrol products supplied to our customers. So So the two things cannot be right at the same time. If they are sourcing, because it's said especially in Lagos, they are sourcing it. I think it's really for reasons of proximity more than anything else, because logistically it's cheaper to source from where Dangote is in Lekki and transport it around all the NNPC stations, petrol stations in Lagos, rather than bring it all the way from Warri or Port Harcourt and then bring it to their chain in Lagos. So if you set aside conspiracy theories and consternations for a moment, it actually makes more sense for what they're saying to be the case. So we can accept that. So if that is the case, then how is it then possible that that guy's video is as he claims it is? So the two things cannot be both right at the same time. They cannot be sourcing petroleum from NNPC and that guy's video also be believable. So those two things they cannot be right at the same time. Furthermore, it is important to emphasize that a significant percentage of premium motor spirit PMS sold at NNPC retail stations in Lagos, where this deceptive video was created, is sourced from the Dangote refinery, a strategic partner in promoting local production and energy security. Dangote refinery adheres to strict industry standards, guaranteeing the quality of petroleum products supplied to our customer. This misleading video represents yet another desperate attempt by economic saboteurs to misinform the public and tarnish NNPC Limited's reputation. We will not tolerate deliberate misinformation designed to undermine our operations and mislead Nigerians. Henceforth, NNPC Limited will take legal action against individuals or groups who intentionally spread falsehood about our brand or operations. Those engaged in such malicious activities will be held fully accountable under the law. So there it is right there. So a lot of things to unpack from that. Actually, NNPC buying petroleum from Dangote, selling it in their petrol stations and try to palm it off as their own product, but then selling it at a higher markup than what obtains in other places. So there's that. So there is that. From that, let's go on to the headline piece. Let's go on. Let me send the link again. Actually, if anybody wants the conversation, you do have to come in. We always say that if you want the conversation, you have to come in. So there's the link right there. So if you want the conversation, you have to come in. So that's the link right there. 2027, we are committed to Igbo presidency. This is the Labour Party. So if you've ever needed to know anything, I think this now tells you everything that you do need to know. So they are not committed to the best president possible for Nigeria. They're not committed to the best male or female that will best advance us from where we are to a better place. No, they are only interested in a sectional tribal narrative. And when we told you that this was a tribal narrative, you were all throwing stones at us. When we're all telling you that this was a tribal narrative, you were all throwing. What happened to Baba T, by the way? That just it occurred to me that I'll call him out if I came on. BT, if you're out there, let us know you're okay. We've not seen you for a while. Sorry about that. Back to it. 2027, we are committed to Igbo presidency. This is the Labour Party telling us what we already know, that the whole thing is just an ethnic agenda. The Labour Party LP has reiterated its commitment to support the Southeast in achieving their long-held ambition of producing a Nigerian president. So the Southeast should necessarily not want to produce a Nigerian president, nor should should anybody rather anchor after or hanker after a Southeastern president. We don't need a Southeastern president. We need a Nigerian president. So the Southeasterners can elect and appoint a president in their own region if they so fervently want that. We certainly do not want or need a Southeastern president. No, we need a Nigerian president. That's what we need. Pardon me. Pardon me. Actually, let me play a bit of music. I need to get some water. I need a bit more water. My throat is, I'm just perched. Let me play a bit of music. So there it is right there. That's Tony Kabaka's doing whatever it is that he was doing. 2027, we are committed to Igbo presidency. This is the Labour Party telling us then there is sectional tribal a really bigoted party. The Labour Party LP has reiterated its commitment to supporting the Southeast in achieving their long-held ambition of producing a Nigerian president. Speaking at a rally organized by Southeast Party members in Abuja, the national chairman of the Labour Party, so you don't get any more higher up, and it cannot be more categorical than it coming from the head unto itself. The Labour Party LP has reiterated its commitment to supporting the Southeast in achieving their long-held ambition of producing a Nigerian president. Speaking at a rally organized by Southeast Party members in Abuja, the national chairman of the Labour Party, Julius Abure, said that the party remains a viable platform for the Igbo to realize this goal in the 2027 general election. So that it tells you a lot, because they are not hiding anything from you. So don't then say that you don't know what you are buying once it's being sold to you, because it's stated there categorically then that their main and sole mission is to produce a Southeastern. It's from the, if they are saying it's from the horse's mouth, the chairman of the party is that horse. The Labour Party LP has reiterated its commitment to supporting the Southeast in achieving their long-held ambition of producing a Nigerian president. Speaking at a rally organized by Southeast Party members in Abuja, the national chairman of the Labour Party, Julius Abure, said that the party remains a viable platform for the Igbo to realize this goal in the 2027 general elections. The rally, held in preparation for the upcoming area council elections in the Federal Capital Territory FCT, saw a large turnout of party members and aspirants. Abure used the occasion to reflect on the party's decision to zone its 2023 presidential ticket to the Southeast, a move he described as a deliberate effort to wipe the tears of the Igbos and address historical political marginalization. So that is to tell you that if they zoned it to the Southeast in 2023 and they are zoning it to the Southeast in 2027, then you can extrapolate and project to the future to tell you then this is what let me actually play you this clip by Wole Soyinka, because Wole Soyinka foretold all this. So he told us this, that they've turned it into a regional party, but there it is.
These recent elections. It's unfortunate that because the two things happened, first of all. One party took over the labor movement, which is one of my favorite movements also. And then it became a regional party, more than, whereas it was a marvelous breach into.
So there it is right there. Wole Soyinka told us that they turned it. That's as far back as 2023. And this is the chairman of the party now telling us that it is indeed a regional party. One more time, and all the way through this time, the Labour Party LP has reiterated its commitment to supporting the Southeast in achieving their long-held ambition of producing a Nigerian president. So how can the Southeast produce a Nigerian president? So if they can only produce a Southeastern, if that's the agenda, then it cannot be a Nigerian president. The Labour Party LP has reiterated its commitment to supporting the Southeast in achieving their long-held ambition of producing a Nigerian president. Speaking at a rally organized by Southeast Party members in Abuja, the national chairman of the Labour Party, Julius Abure, said that the party remains a viable platform for the Igbo to realize their goal in the 2027 general election. The rally, held in preparation for the upcoming area council elections in the Federal Capital Territory FCT, saw a large turnout of party members and aspirants. Abure used the occasion to reflect on the party's decision to zone its 2023 presidential ticket to the Southeast, a move he described as a deliberate effort to wipe the tears of the Eagles and address historical political marginalization. Abure recounted the 2023 general election when the Labour Party, under the leadership of Peter Obi, made significant strides in uniting the Southeast and garnering nationwide support. He acknowledged that prior to the election, he had underestimated the level of unity amongst the Igbo. So that is to tell you then that, it is quite concerning, actually, the voting patterns, as we have seen, for them to unilaterally, universally vote in one direction. That is not democracy right there. That's sectarianism. So if imagine for a moment, they vote 93 across the board. If you average it, 93% in the Southeast, the vote went in one direction. So if that vote wins through, then what then happens as a consequence of that? So that is sectarianism, isn't it? And regionalism, parochialism, tribalism, ethnic jingoism, all the isms embedded. Abure recounted the 2023 general election when the Labour Party, under the leadership of Peter Obi, made significant strides in uniting the Southeast and garnering nationwide support. He acknowledged that prior to the election, he had underestimated the level of unity amongst the Igbos. However, campaigning with Peter Obi across the country revealed the resilience, industriousness, and fearlessness of the Igbo people. So this is pandering as pandering gets. Imagine if any other person was campaigning so overtly and crudely, crassly, ethnically. Imagine if anybody else was doing that. Imagine if anybody else was doing that. The screeching and the squealing will keep you up at night. The Igbos are the most united, most formidable, most industrious, and most hardworking people in Nigeria. This is why I have no regrets about zoning the presidential ticket to the Southeast in 2023. We made a bold statement, and we will continue to support Igbo in their quest for the presidency, he said. Whilst expressing pride in the Igbo community's achievements, Abure said there is need for strategic realignment with other regions of the country. Why would any region align with an ethnic agenda of a subset of the country? Why would a Nupe person align with an overt and open statement that they want an Igbo president? What is in it for a Nupe person? What is in it? What is in it for a Kanuri man? This naked ambition of ethnic jingoism. What is in it for him? It's just nonsense, isn't it? Whilst expressing pride in the Igbo community's achievements, Abure said there is need for strategic realignment with other regions in the country. Drawing parallels with the Yoruba, he said that the Southwest only achieved presidential success after forming alliances with other ethnic groups. The Igbos must learn from history. The Yorubas, at some point, were also isolated politically. And by the way, there was never any real time that the Yorubas you have to understand that it's very, very difficult to isolate or marginalize the Yorubas from the Nigerian paradigm, because the sway that actually, you said the numbers are in the north, but the sway that actually sways most things, it comes from the southwest, and especially from Lagos. The media is there and is controlled by that space. The legal structures are controlled by that space, and even the financial structures are controlled by that space. So very, very, if they weigh the media against you, then you're effed. The Igbos must learn from history. The Yorubas at some point were also isolated politically. It was only through realignment and unity that they were able to capture the presidency. The Igbos need to adopt a similar approach, Abure said. But they don't have the tact and the dexterity. That's just the thing, because they only know at that forceful sort of which doesn't really work. It has its limitations. That machismo, whatever it is, they call it unzoboism. Even Soludo spoke about it. So they don't have the tact or the dexterity or the finesse, to form those alignments. That's just the thing. The Igbos must learn from history. The Yorubas at some point were also isolated politically. It was only through realignment and unity that they were able to capture the presidency. The Igbos need to adopt a similar approach, Abure said. He further emphasized the importance of strong, unified leadership within the Igbo community, calling for a collective voice and purpose to achieve their political aspirations. Unity of purpose is key. While it is not necessary for everyone to agree on everything, we must come together to a large extent to realize our dreams, he said. Abure also addressed concerns about internal party democracy. Look at the guy talking about internal party democracy. That guy is the guy that is we had Abayomi Arabami here the last time. Maybe we should try and bring him back. Who was quoting? He was spitting as he was calling Abure's name. That the guy is so crooked and so anti-democratic. Abure also addressed concerns about the internal party democracy, assuring aspirants. And by the way, he shouldn't really give any assurances to aspirants or aspirants because, of course, from all the reports we had in 2023, it was tickets for sale. It doesn't matter who the delegates vote for, it was tickets for sale. That was how we ran 2023. Apart from Peter Obi, everybody else they bought the tickets. That's just how they do things over there. Abure also addressed concerns about the internal party democracy, assuring aspirants that the Labour Party would not impose candidates in the upcoming city area council elections. He pledged that the party's primaries would be credible, transparent, and reflective of the members' wishes. The Labour Party is better than any other party in Nigeria because we respect the will of the people. Look at the guy that formed the kangaroo panel and made himself chairman, re-elected. In this coming election, only party members will determine who becomes our candidates. We will not subvert the aspirations of the people, he said. So there it is right there. So it's as clear as you need it to be clear. That's Julius Abure right there, telling us that so it's not even who is best for Nigeria. It's just telling you just blanket statement is going to a particular region. So there it is. Let me send the link again. Anybody that wants to hop in. Maybe it's too heavy hitting for you. If it's too heavy hitting for you, then it's too heavy hitting for you. But there's the link anyway. If anybody wants to come in. Let's come from there to another one. Matawale cautions Lawal affirms Northern Nigeria's unwavering support for Tinubu. So there is a division somewhat emerging within the North, actually. And by the way, Senator Shehu Sali has crossed over to APCO, but that's just an aside. There's a growing and an evolving division emerging within the North. The Tinubuans and the non-Tinubuans. So there are people calling, we had Gandude call it, we had other people call it as well, that you guys just forget 2023, let this guy complete his compliment, and we come back in 2031. But the Desperados, of course, will not have it that way. Matawale cautions Lawal affirms Northern Nigeria's unwavering support for Tinubu. So it's quite noted, though, it's quite pertinent to note that it's mainly Northerners in government that are essentially leaping to Tinubu's defense. Minister of State for Defense, Dr. Bello Mohammed Matawale, has categorically refuted the recent comments of Dr. Babachir Lawal. As Babachir Lawal, is he still there? I thought he was dead and buried. I thought he was in the political wilderness now, in the political graveyard. So it's popped out again to say I'm still here. The Minister of State for Defense, Dr. Bello Matawale, has categorically refuted recent comments by Dr. Babachir Lawal regarding the 2027 presidential ambitions of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Matawale emphasized that President Tinubu has made commendable strides in governance, and that Lawal and his associates will be surprised by the resounding support the president will receive from the North. People will be surprised, and I don't think people will be surprised actually how 2027 will go, because the build up to 2027 will show you Tinubu reasserting his popularity, and when the results come in, it will be difficult for anybody to counterweight it. Yeah, don't worry. All this screeching and screaming, even power, and all this now improve the economy, we go top and all that. All those little skits that Peter B and Atiku are doing. When the real heart of the matter comes, the narrative will be told. In his statement, Minister Matawale noted President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who has been in office for just 19 months, has made significant contributions to all regions of Nigeria, including the North. The people of the North will rally behind Mr. President to build upon the achievements and reforms he has initiated. The minister highlighted several key areas where President Tinubu has made impactful reforms that warrant support from the northern electorate, particularly security and defense. He stated, in 2024, Nigerian security forces neutralized over 8,000 terrorists and bandits, arrested 11,600 criminals, and recovered more than 10,000 weapons. This robust action has significantly improved security across the North. The successful rescue of approximately 8,000 kidnapped victims underscores the government's commitment to ensuring the safety of all citizens. Also, the establishment of the multi-agency anti-kidnap fusion cell in December 2024, in collaboration with the UK National Crime Agency, has enhanced strategic coordination in the fight against kidnapping. Dr. Matawale emphasized the North remains steadfast in the support for President Tinubu. Any insinuation to the contrary is a deliberate attempt to sow discord and undermine our national security. Looking at the administration from the economic point of view, the minister said economic initiatives like the creation of the Ministry of Livestock Development aims to tap into the agricultural potential of the North, promoting economic growth and empowering millions, particularly young youths and women in the North. This initiative is expected to transform rural communities and contribute to food security, etc., etc. So that's the chasm then showing up in the North then to tell you then that people are taking positions and sharpening their swords in preparation for 2027. So I think the politics is already taking shape, and the direction that is going to follow is already emerging. And for that yin, there's this yang. So this is the converse. This is the counterweight to what we just read. Former Nigerian Governor Spitfire warns politicians against joining APC, gives reason. So this is Tambuwal, of course, the perennial traitor, the one that stabbed Yemse Wike in the back. Senator Aminu Waziri Tambuwal, former governor of Sokoto State, has strongly criticized the recent wave of defections to the ruling All Progressive Congress APC, particularly in the northwest region of Nigeria. So there it is right there. So what you are seeing now are political realignments. Like I said, there was a whole swathe of people crossing over in Kaduna State. We saw that with Governor Sani welcoming them as close as 500,000. That's what they were telling us. There's a wave of defectees from the Kwakwansia movement into the APC. Their principal yet to cross over, but at some point he will cross over as well. There's Senator Shehu Sani, erstwhile arch rival of what's his name, of El Rufai. He's crossed over to APC with his followership, and we're expecting then that people like Kenneth Okonkwo, etc., they'll cross over within the first quarter of this year. So you're seeing the realignment take place. Senator Aminu Waziri Tambuwal, a former governor of Sokoto State, has strongly criticized the recent wave of defections to the ruling of Progressive Congress APC, particularly in the northwest region of the country. So this is really the topmost key because the biggest votes actually comes out of this cusp. So when you are seeing heavy movement, particularly in the northwest, that gives you a good indicator as to the direction of travel of that election, of the upcoming election. If the wave is swaying in any particular direction in the northwest, that gives you it gives you the biggest hint as to the direction. If the northwest sways to APC, and the northeast certainly will go heavily towards APC because of their son being the second citizen, and then they jostle for this and that. You know, in the last election, actually, they said, oh, XYZ won this many states, ABC won this many states. In all the states, and we can bring out the results and go through them again. In all the states, if APC did not win, they came a close second. They certainly came second, and in most instances came a close second. And it's a numbers game. So I get 100, you get 110, and you say you win. But then I go and get 500 in another place, and you get 20, and you say because you won one and I won one, it's 50-50. Can you see? It's a numbers game, is it not? Senator Aminu Waziri Tambuwal, a former governor of Sokoto State, has strongly criticized the recent wave of defections to the ruling of Progressive Congress APC, particularly in the northwest region of Nigeria. Tambuwal further expressed concern that the defections were driven by personal ambitions rather than genuine efforts to serve the people. So, some people will cry, I'm expecting people to cry. I've been seeing them still crying all over social media anyway. But as some people will cry, but they will shed tears of blood in not a literal slaughtering people, but they will bang their heads against the wall in 2027. The former Sokoto State governor spoke to the press after the maiden zonal executive council meeting of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) Northwest in Kaduna State. Tambuwal emphasized that the defections were rooted in personal interest and not in the desire to improve the lives of Nigerians. How can the improvement of the lives of Nigerians be within the purview of somebody like Tambuwal or Atiku Abubakar, El-Rufai, or all of these? We know they are antecedents now, so what are we even talking about? The only thing that can excite people is fresh blood. I actually sent the link to him. Actually, I saw somebody actually come out yet again today to say that the best thing, the only option, if we really wanted change in that country, the only option is to go for Prince Adewale Adebayo. So I actually saw somebody come out and say that. I actually even sent it to the prince himself that, look, this is what people are saying about you. Maybe I'll bring you that after this, actually. So let me just hold on 1 second. I hope the delivery is not too skittish, because I'm just telling you, I'm speaking to you as the thoughts are coming through my head. So I'm sure those of you within the space, you understand what I'm saying. Let's start from the top again and we'll rush through this one. Let's start from the top and we'll go through this one at speed. Tambuwal emphasized that defections. Oh no, that's not the top. Okay, I'll go through this one very quickly, and then we'll move on. Senator Aminu Waziri Tambuwal, the former governor of Sokoto State, has strongly criticized the recent wave of defections to the ruling of Progressive Congress APC, particularly in the northwest region of Nigeria. Tambuwal further expressed concern that the defections were driven by personal ambitions rather than genuine efforts to serve the people. The former Sokoto State governor spoke to the press after the maiden zonal executive council meeting of the People's Democratic Party People's Democratic Party (PDP) Northwest in Kaduna State. Tambuwal emphasized that the defections were rooted in personal interest and not in the desire to improve the lives of Nigerians. He described these defections as a result of what he called stomach infrastructure, suggesting that politicians are motivated by self-enrichment than by a commitment to public service. Politicians change allegiance for various reasons, but I have noticed that many defections are not about the people's welfare, but are based on personal gains. If any politician still has a conscience, joining the APC under the current circumstances with the economic difficulties and the poor performance of the Tinubu administration is unjustifiable, Tambuwal remarked. Tambuwal did not hold back in his criticism of the APC-led government, accusing it of lacking direction and being out of touch with the struggles faced by Nigerians. Correspondent report. He highlighted the administration's failure to address critical national issues as evidence of its inability to lead effectively. There is nothing to attract any politician to the APC other than personal benefits. Those of us who genuinely care for this country and are committed to serving its people must unite and ensure that this government is removed by 2027, he said. Despite setbacks. So anyway, I think we've gotten the gist of that. Let me just move on from there. So this is what I actually sent to Prince Adebayo, and a lot of people concur with this actually. 2027 presidency, why I prefer Adebayo to others. This is Bugaji. So you know there are thinkers in the north, and when you come across the thinkers in the north, they're very erudite and cerebral in their thoughts. Should I even read this? This wasn't on the list, so I just brought it up because I sent it to the prince earlier on. Okay, so that's that. The North continues to endorse the prince. The North continues to endorse the prince. Shehu Sani defects to APC. So this comes as no surprise to anyone. But that drops. Oh, let me bring that up again. Right, I will send the link again, but it's there in the comment section. Anybody that wants to come in. Shehu Sani defects to APC. So let's see what's going on. Governor Ubasani of Kaduna State has welcomed to the All Progressive Congress APC Senator Shehu Sani and other prominent politicians in Kaduna. Governor Sani also assured Shehu Sani, and a lot of Sanis in Kaduna State. Governor Sani also assured Shehu Sani and the other 49 political stalwarts that defected to the APC that they will enjoy the same rights and privileges like every other members of the party. The governor spoke when he addressed a mammoth crowd of the party supporters at the Murtala Mohammed Square at a mega rally held on Saturday. Sani said there was no difference between a party member that joined it recently or the ones that have been in the APC for 10 years. He said, someone who joined the APC today and the one who has been a foundation member 10 years ago, they are of the same status. They will enjoy the same rights and privileges. I hope not. But so that's Shehu Sani going back home somewhere. I think he came from the APC, didn't he? So now this one I will read to you actually, because it looks as though then there are dark things going on within the Osun State space. Adeleke versus Oyetola, they're still scratching at each other in that middle of nowhere state. Adeleke asks Tinubu to caution Oyetola, APC defense minister. So he actually wrote a long essay on Twitter, actually, Senator Adeleke, but hopefully it's condensed with this particular piece. Right, Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke has asked President Bola Tinubu to caution the Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, Gboyega Oyetola, over an alleged plot to create chaos and anarchy in the southwest state. There's actually a lot going on in Osun State, because we saw recently, a few days ago, that an alliance took place between Aregbesola and Kwakwanso. And then, of course, and there are rumors that they are trying to get Adeleke to cross carpet to the APC. And then Oyetola, of course, still yanking his balls there. So a lot of political goings on in Osun State. Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke has asked President Bola Tinubu to caution the Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, Gbega Oyetola, over an alleged plot to create chaos and anarchy in the southwest state. At a press briefing on Sunday, so he must have reasons to say this, so, but what are those reasons? At a press briefing on Sunday, Adeleke alleged that his predecessor had instructed the police and the Department of State Services to effect a non-existent judgment by forcefully taking over the local government on Monday. Okay, the local government elections are coming up. I think that's where the jostlings are. The governor said, the local government elections are going to be fought. They are going to be fought more fiercely than ever before, for reasons of that financial autonomy that Tinubu secured for that space. The governor said the bone of contention is the brazen effrontery to return to office, council chairman sacked by a subsisting court judgment using a different court decision which has no consequential order. Let me make it clear that the said council chairmen were sacked before I was sworn in as governor of Osun State, contrary to the lies being peddled that the chairmen and councillors were sacked by my executive order. For emphasis, I want to state that I had nothing to do with the sacking of the chairmen and councillors produced by the Osun State 2022 local government polls. So that's the goings on there. So just leave Osun State to it. I'll only give you this one as a headline. How then AMCON MD Ahmed Kuru sold Delta Steel to Indian Nigerian Vaswani's company just 4 months after registration. So it's just that never-ending saga, their bookies and their criminality. So that's that. Yeah, I'm not going to send the link again. The link is there for anybody that wants to use it. Let me just play you the clips that we have, and then we'll see what happens next. All right, we've already played the guy playing the Dangote something. Let me play you this clip actually. So the police then stopped this guy. They checked his particulars. Everything was in order, but then things went awry from there. What this?
My offense. What happened to the document of Lexus C350, ROS 350? I want to know the offense. You checked the document of my car. You are asking me to buy you 10 liters of fuel. For what reason? Did I have 10 liters in my car? I don't have 10 liters in my car. How can you ask me to fuel you when you know the authorities want fueling your car? What do you want to do with fuel, Mr. Man? What do you want to do with fuel? You're asking a citizen, a youth like me, to fuel your tank 10 liters. I have the money to fuel 100 liters, but I'm more than that. Yes. Yes. I can see him. Only this phone camera. Only this phone screen.
So there it is right there. That's policing Nigerian style. So that's policing Nigerian style. And this is, a lot of people come up with the argument that the binary system that actually underpins computing comes from Ifa. That's somewhat of a tenuous argument, and that's somewhat of a prejudiced argument as well. But that mathematics is very much embedded in the Yoruba culture. There is no equivocation about that. And further proof, what this. Yoruba. So there it is right there. More and more science is uncovering just how sophisticated that region was. There are things going as far back. The most complex artifacts coming out of Nigeria are the Ife heads, not even the Benin bros, because the Benin bones are somewhat rudimentary. Let me actually show you the Ife head. Let me show you. Just hold on 1 second. Just looking for it now. Oh, okay, that's a good example. And then let me show you a Benin bronze. So we do a comparison actually. Benin bronze. Oh, okay. Here's a good example. All right. So here is an example of the Ife head. Unmistakable, of course. You've seen this this particular crown on the Oni himself all the time. He goes out to see that. You see how detailed and complex it is. To the point, this is actually even from the BBC that they did a whole document. Who hasn't done a documentary on the Ife head? So that's the Ife head right there. But if you contrast it with the Benin bronze, you see that the Benin bronze somewhat a lot more lacking in sophistry. Even the eyes are hollowed out, you know, a lot more rudimentary. So there is no equivocation about the culture. A lot is imagined now. And you know that they are actually discovering then as far back as the 12th century, people already are doing trade, fermenting iron into tools and creating beads. So they've gone past the stage of nakedness, even to clothing. They've then gone from clothing to accentuating their apparels with trinkets. So they were doing beads. You know the Yoruba beads now. You know those beads. They come from Ife now. You know, and they've been doing that since the 12th century. So and they are telling us then the complex mathematics that underpinned trade in that region. Let's watch that again.
Yoruba, for example, invented an advanced mathematical system. Claudia Zaslavsky, in her book Africa Conks, Number and Pattern in African Culture, has shown this. And I particularly am struck by the fact that while she was doing this work, she met a Yoruba mathematician. He is Yoruba and he's a mathematician. And he said, I never knew.
All right, so that's that right there. So there is that right there. Let me play you this one. For every yin, there's a yang. Let me play you this one. You know, this one caught me left field, actually. But when you hear this lady speak now, you immediately recognize the experience. No matter where you are in the world, you recognize the experience. What's this?
Hey guys, I'm in Peckham right now, and when I tell you that this is a second Nigeria, don't even think I'm joking. I just passed by this store and I saw that they are selling Nigerian food. But what shocked me the most is that it's non-Nigerians selling Nigerian food. Come, let's go check it out. So this is what I saw when I passed by. Okay, let's go in and have a chat with them. Hello. Look, can you imagine? Hi. I have never seen a non-Nigerian selling Nigerian food. How long have you been doing this business?
So we've been here for 20 years.
Where are you originally from?
I'm from Pakistan, but I'm British born.
How did you discover you could sell Nigerian food here?
Well, we're a family-run business. My father started this place off. You know, he started off with Sierra Leonean food, it didn't work. He tried Indian food, it didn't work. And a lot of people would have probably packed up and left. But he went through the struggle, he went through the pain, you know, and he kept working hard and pushing for himself. And yeah, we got here.
And now he's doing Nigerian food. You're doing Nigerian food and it's working.
Yes. We thank God, you know.
I am seeing puff puff. I even saw akara. I saw buns. I saw a foriro. I saw okra. Oh my God, pomo shaki, everything is there. Sorry, you can go. Everything is there. Pounded yam, is that amala?
Amala.
Would you say you love the Nigerian culture, or you're just doing it for business?
No. So as I said, I'm a British born, but I grew up, in the local area of Peckham. I went to school with all my friends. I had Nigerian, African friends. We used to always have jollof rice at school. Oh. I would go to their house, they'd come to my house. So yeah, we got to know each other a lot, and I kind of was already familiar with the food.
Okay, can you speak some Nigerian slang so that I will know? Come closer to me.
What thing you want to talk about now?
Okay, go on.
Hey, we can talk.
How far now you there now?
I define. How are you?
I do. What's in the shop now? How business they go wherever.
Thank God now, business that well.
You have Nigerians working for you.
We have Nigerian chefs, but they are not just Nigerian chefs. They are family. We are all one family. At Cafe Spice, everybody is just a family. You understand? We treat each other with so much love and respect, and that's why we all work together and why we are here where we are now.
Okay, so if you are in Peckham, please come to this Nigerian food spot. What's it called again?
Cafe Spice. We are 88 Rye Lane, and the train station is just, You
go use pidgin talk am. You form big man for me. I've been waiting.
You come at the station, just go right. We are there. Don't worry.
Come.
Cafe Spice. You know where to come.
So there it is right there. So I mean, I don't even know what to make of that. First you have to applaud the Pakistanis for their enterprise, and then you have to condemn the Nigerians for being dullards. Can you imagine that? You pounded yam as made from Lahore in Pakistan. Can you imagine that? A 40 amala from a Pakistani man. Look at that. And then you as a Nigerian, you go there and unbutton your top the button to your trousers and settle down to a pounded yam as made by a Pakistani. Imagine that. So imagine that. Let me play you one more clip. This is from this is a blast from the past, actually. This is Obadiah Malafia reminding us again just where we are. And this has resurfaced really because El Rufai is black in play. And Obadiah Malafia, of course, warned us about these things. What they
and the truth. And let me make some revelations, because some of us also have our own intelligence networks.
Okay.
Have met with some of the bandits. We have met with some of their high commanders. One or two who have repented. They have sat down with us, not once, not twice. They told us that one of the northern governors is the commander of Boko Haram in Nigeria. Boko Haram and the bandits are one and the same thing. They have a sophisticated network. During this lockdown, their planes were moving up and down as though there was no lockdown. Moving ammunitions, moving logistics, moving money, and distributing them in different parts of the country. They're already in the south, in the rainforest of the south. They're everywhere. They told us that when they finish these rural killings, they will move to phase 2. The phase 2 is they will go into the urban cities, going from house to house, killing prominent people. I can tell you, this is the game plan. By 2022, they want to start a civil war in Nigeria. Don't joke with what I'm saying. I have a PhD from Oxford University. I'm a central banker. We don't talk nonsense. So don't joke with what I'm telling you. I have this from the highest possible authority, higher authorities of some of the commanders of the killers and Boko Haram.
You said northern governors, past or present, Dr. Badaya?
No, current. No, they said one of them is the commander of Boko Haram in Nigeria. One of them. And they are not looking for money. They have more than enough money. In fact, he told me they just came back.
So there it is right there. Obadiah Melafia warned us about that all those years ago. He passed away, I think, about 2 years thereabout, maybe longer. So the information has always been out there. And that information has always circled around somebody like El Rufai. And you have to remember that El Rufai was El Rufai was, I was not even going to say one of those, but I think it's actually the only one. It was the governor that was actually giving bandits money. Do you remember? It was paying them billions and billions all the way through his tenure, telling us that he was paying them off to stop them going after people of hold on, going after people of Kaduna State. But really, there was a lot of killing under him in southern Kaduna under El Rufai. So a lot of people actually speculate, and the speculation has always been there that the main go-to guy of the bandits in Nigeria is actually El Rufai. That they even call him the commander-in-chief. All right, let me bring you this piece. Actually, I was going to make that the last clip, but let me bring you this. I don't usually like to go to Reno Mokri because it's such a controversial figure, but he put this out. He says, exposed fear of Trump behind El Rufai's sudden cancellation of overseas studies. So, Reno Mokri over the last few days has been prodding at El Rufai, hinting that El Rufai is not able to go to the United States for reason that he may be arrested by the Trump administration for, of course, being a supporter of terrorism. He even went as far as to offer him a first-class ticket if he's willing to take the dare. But let's have this one as the last one, and then we'll see what happens after that. Exposed fear of Trump behind Nestle El Rufai's sudden cancellation of overseas studies. Contrary to his claims that he was suspending his plans for further studies abroad because President Tinubu wants to arrest him and is not a coward. So, what has President Tinubu got to do? Is he going to arrest you in America? This guy is such a clown, man. That El Rufai is just such a fool. Contrary to his claims that he was suspending his plans for further studies abroad because President Tinubu wants to arrest him and is not a coward, Nasir El Rufai is fearful of arrest and prosecution by the Trump administration, which is the real reason he wants to sit tight in Nigeria. It may be recalled that Nasir El Rufai publicly admitted to paying killer headsmen, an admission that did not go down well with the pro-religious freedom Trump administration. Things, however, took a turn for the worse on Thursday, February the 7th, 2019, where after Malam Nasir El Rufai threatened European Union observers with death if they intervened in Nigeria's impending presidential elections, which were to take place on Saturday, February the 16th, 2019. On that day, Mr. El Rufai said, "We are waiting for the person who will come and intervene. They will go back in body bags." We all recall that statement, of course. Imagine if that guy was the president of this country, of our country, not this country. He can't be the president. They don't even have a presidential system where I am. But imagine if he was the president of Nigeria. The Yorubas, they will put everybody in leg chains, and then have us go on all fours and ask the local Fulanis to ride us like horses. Let me take from top again, actually. Exposed fear of Trump behind Nasir El Rufai's sudden cancellation of overseas studies, contrary to his claims that he was suspending his plans for further studies abroad because President Tinubu wants to arrest him and is not a coward. Nasir El Rufai is fearful of arrest and prosecution by the Trump administration, which is the real reason he wants to sit tight in Nigeria. It may be recalled that Nasir El Rufai publicly admitted to paying killer headsmen, an admission that did not go down well with the pro-religious freedom Trump administration. Things, however, took a turn for the worse on Thursday, February 19th, 2019, after Malam Nasir El-Rufai threatened European Union observers with death if they intervened in Nigeria's impending presidential elections, which were to take place on Saturday, February 16th, 2019. On that day, Mr. El-Rufai said, "We are waiting for the person who will come and intervene. They will go back in body bags because nobody will come to Nigeria and tell us how to run our country." The above statement and his admission of guilt with regards to painkiller headsmen have ignited a fear of traveling to the United States in Mr. El-Rufai, especially after President Donald Trump's announcement that he will go after leaders who targeted Christians. True to his promise, President Trump set up a task force for that purpose on Thursday, February the 6th, 2025. Exactly 5 days after President Trump set up the task force, Malam Nasir El-Rufai manufactured the excuse that President Bola Tinubu wanted to arrest him, so he cancelled all his plans to study abroad. In 2017, at an event in Washington, D.C., that had former President Jonathan, Peter Obi, and myself in attendance, Nasir El-Rufai's name was cited by Republican Congressman and strong Trump ally Christopher Smith as one of those responsible for making Nigeria the most dangerous place in the world for Christians. You see the videos that Obedience are always brandishing of Peter, Obi, and I. It was recorded during that event. The next day, Saturday the 4th, 2017, this day headline read, Nigeria cited most dangerous place for Christians in the world, says U.S. Congressman. Throughout Trump's first term from 2016 to 2020, Nasir El-Rufai refused to set foot in America. Now Trump has returned, and El-Rufai is jittery. If you read the reasons the Senate gave for rejecting President Tinubu's El-Rufai ministerial nomination, his reckless statements, and the extreme bloodshed during his tenure were cited as reasons. So that guy, man, is a highly dangerous man, El-Rufai, very, very dangerous, worse than Buhari, in terms of ethnic jingoism, gender proportion, and just conquest lost. Nasir supporters should know that Malam El-Rufai was rejected by the Senate, not Tinubu. President Tinubu kept to his word. And this is not the first time. He was also rejected when President Obasanjo sent his name to the Senate in 2003. Nigerians can research the story of how he was eventually cleared there. There was a cause, and shortly after that cause, Malam Nasir El-Rufai reacted. This is a simple case of cause and effect. Nasir El-Rufai's cup is full. His sins have found him out. The blood of the thousands of Christians and Shiites killed whilst he reigned as the butcher of Kaduna has cried out for justice. So that's Nasir. There's no way that guy will ever be. It will forever perennially be a spoiler. But there's no. If anybody wants to, you have to. I'm not going to say it again. If you want to come in, come in. If you don't want to come in, we shut it down. It will forever be. It will forever be a spoiler. But I don't think it would impact in any significant way in Nigerian politics again. Let me play you one more clip, then I'll play you the K guys.
All right, Afeni Ferry has a new national organizing secretary, and that is no other person than Teli Farotimi. Yes, that was confirmed yesterday. Now we have Barrister Dele Farotimi as the new National Organizing Secretary. They said the General Meeting considered and approved the appointment in a communique signed yesterday. They dropped that.
Okay, so let's make sense of this. In the first place, you have two factions of Afenifere. So this must be the Lagos faction, Ayo Adebanjo faction.
Yes.
Definitely. I could close my eyes and tell you that that's where that's coming from. Because they align more, they supported Mr. Peter Obi the last time. And Mr. Farotimi also supported Peter Obi the last time. So that's where, all that is coming from. They have something in common, something very strong in common, which is their support for Mr. Peter Obi to emerge as president that time, although it didn't work out, so I don't think they've gotten, they have, left that. So that's a strong point for them. But, apart from that, you also know that Mr. Farotimi at some point, expressed very clearly to everybody that the Igbos are, more suitably, adapted to the Nigerian system, and they are likely to thrive more than Yoruba people because they are more industrious and so on and so forth. The eulogy was very powerful. So I don't know how, somebody who's expressed such lack of confidence in Yoruba people generally is now going to be representing and organizing Yoruba people. That will be interesting to see how it progresses. The other thing is that you have a choice between the Lagos faction and Paruban Fashoranti faction. Yeah. As a Yoruba person, you have a choice. Nobody is compelled to follow one or the other. So if I want, I will just be looking in the direction of Paruban Fashoranti's, faction of Afenifere. And if you like, you can be looking at the Lagos faction.
Pick one.
So there it is right there. I wonder if that if that offer should be withdrawn from Dele Farotimi, because of course it was meant to be a stooge for Pa Adebanjo, who are sadly departed now. A lot of anyway, there are things about Pa Adebanjo. Somebody was just reminding me that he was a Zikist back in those Awolowo days. So he has never been for Yoruba people, Pa Adebanjo, but there it is. So there it is. I'll play you the Kegat music and then we take it from there.
Only water, where they see ma. Hapa o naido. Hapa you don't come o. Hapa o naido. Oro kẹ̀kẹ́ ẹlẹ́mù yé o. Ilé sọ́dí àkẹ́kẹ́ rẹ̀ ẹlẹ́mù rẹ̀ o. Bọ́bí màsà kẹ̀kẹ́ rẹ̀ ẹlẹ́mù rẹ̀ o. Chifu Fáìlà tí kẹ̀kẹ́ rẹ̀ ẹlẹ́mù rẹ̀ o. Eruku lẹ̀lẹ̀ ẹlẹ́mù dé. Eruku lẹ̀lẹ̀ ẹgbẹ́ ẹlẹ́mù dòde ojàre o. Eruku lẹ̀lẹ̀ Ghana ti dé ẹgbẹ́ bọ́ọ̀dì o. Ọmọ ẹlẹ́yẹ ẹ̀yẹ o ó dilé o. Olúyẹ̀lá ẹ̀yẹ o ó dilé o. Petrosoname ẹ̀yẹ o ó dilé o. Petrosodunke ẹ̀yẹ rẹ̀ ó dilé o. Ẹlẹ́kọ̀ ọ̀run mú ìní o. Àkùkọ ọ̀run mẹ́kọ̀. Ikú ṣe o.
And that is right there. So that is right there. So we'll wrap it up here. Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow.